Welcome again to our English program. We're in our 28th day, and we're having a little discussion this evening about if we should maybe end this evening, let this be our last night, because tomorrow possibly is 4th of July, and we don't know if we'll get any turnout the day before. People want to prep for 8, so that's something maybe we could discuss as a group together and maybe vote on it or come to consensus. We could end tonight, or we could possibly extend it to tomorrow, because Tuesday some people are Eideen, and then there are some on Wednesday. So, well, he has an opinion, but your opinion matters too. So we'd like to get everyone's opinion, not go based on just what he thinks. So he's neutral. He told me he's neutral. So yeah. So we'll discuss that inshallah, maybe toward the end of the program, hopefully. But for now, we want to begin, as we're short on time maybe, but let's begin with a Quranic recitation. We're going to have Sayyid Ali Rida come up and perform the Quran. Let's have a salawat ala Muhammad and ala Muhammad form, please.
السلام عليكم. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والنازعات غرقا والناشطات نشطا والسابحات سبحا فالسابقات سبقا فالمدبرات أمرا يوم ترجف الراجفة تتبعها الرادفة قلوب يومئذ واجفة أبصارها خاشعة يقولون أئنا لمردودون في الحافرة أئذا كنا عظاما نخرة قالوا تلك إذا كرة خاسرة فإنما هي زجرة واحدة فإذا هم بالساهرة هل أتاك حديث موسى إذ ناداه ربه بالوادي المقدس طوى اذهب إلى فرعون إنه طغى فقل هل لك إلى أن تزكى وأهديك إلى ربك فتخشى فأراه الآية الكبرى فكذب وعصى ثم أدبر يسعى فحشر فنادى فقال أنا ربكم الأعلى فأخذه الله نكال الآخرة والأولى إن في ذلك لعبرة لمن يخشى أأنتم أشد خلقا أم السماء بناها رفع سمكها فسواها وأغطش ليلها وأخرج ضحاها والأرض بعد ذلك دحاها أخرج منها ماءها ومرعاها والجبال أرساها متاعا لكم ولأنعامكم فإذا جاءت الطامة الكبرى يوم يتذكر الإنسان ما سعى وبرزت الجحيم لمن يرى فأما من طغى وآثر الحياة الدنيا فإن الجحيم هي المأوى وأما من خاف مقام ربه ونهى النفس عن الهوى فإن الجنة هي المأوى يسألونك عن الساعة أيان مرساها فيما أنت من ذكراها إلى ربك منتهاها إنما أنت منذر من يخشاها كأنهم يوم يرونها لم يلبثوا إلا عشية أو ضحاها آمن آمنت بالله صدق الله العلي العظيم. الفاتحة.
Thank you for that beautiful recitation, Sayyid. Let's have a salawat to honor him, please. Alhamdulillah, Muhammad. Just a couple quick points. Once again, if we could please double check our cellular devices, make sure they are muted or silenced, that would be greatly appreciated. And they actually did print some flyers out for the Sunday program. They're right there at the end. We're going to put some in the office, so it discusses exactly what we're going to be doing at 10 a.m. Starting July 10th. But I believe July 10th is there's a Fatiha, so they're going to be providing breakfast that day. But going forward, inshallah, every Sunday we're going to continue. And we're also working on a Friday evening program. We're trying to get the youth back more involved, so that's something that we're going to be striving to work on, maybe like 7 p.m., 8 p.m., something like that. And that's something we want to grow, because we want to, this is for the community, the Jannah, so it's very important to us. And we appreciate everyone coming each and every night, taking time out of their day, and that has a lot of, value. That means a lot to me, to everyone here, and that's what we want to do. We want to work together to grow the Jannah. And so inshallah, going forward, we're going to see everyone here, and we're going to make these decisions together, on what we want to do, especially like with the Ramadan program. I think I'm going to pass around possibly a clipboard and everyone can vote, unless you want to do it by hand. It's up to everyone here who want to do this. Maybe that's what I was thinking of doing, passing a clipboard and put yes or no, if we're going to go tomorrow night or not. No, we'll just go with the consensus on that. Okay, if anyone is in favor of coming tomorrow evening for one more evening, please raise your hand, or should we just end tonight? So let's see how many people. You're neutral? You have to vote. Only the Molena is allowed to be neutral. Okay, so everyone's committed to coming, so if everyone doesn't show up, then I'm gonna be reaching out to you. I'll be here tomorrow if you guys want to come. I'll show up, inshallah. Okay, so it looks like we're going to do one more evening. I'm sorry, Sayyid, your vote is declined. But that being said, let's begin tonight. It's my honor and pleasure to bring you our Molana here at the ICA, who's been gracious enough to come each and every day and give us an insightful lecture, and it's a great privilege to have him here. So without further ado, Samahat al-Shaykh Dr. Ibrahim Kazaruni. Let's have a lot of salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad.
صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله كما يستحق أن يحمد، نحمده على آلائه كما نحمده على آلائه، والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب قلوبنا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين. We praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala the way He deserves to be praised. We praise Him in challenging time as well as in rewarding time. We offer and convey our greeting and salutation to the Holy Prophet of Islam, the most noble of all prophets, and his pure progenies. Sisters and brothers, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. قال الله العظيم في محكم كتابه: أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم، بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل يا عبادي الذين أسرفوا على أنفسهم لا تقنطوا من رحمة الله إن الله يغفر الذنوب جميعا إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. Say, O servants of Allah, who have acted recklessly against themselves, and do not despair of Allah's mercy. Surely Allah will forgive all sins. He is most forgiving, most merciful. Because of number of nights that we had, that I had no other alternative but to underline the critical responsibilities that we have. I got the impression that it has put the fear of death into the life of the audience. And somehow the lectures have been called the scary lectures. So I wanted to bring at least this concept of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's forgiving character into the discussion, that we shouldn't really lose sight of it. It's critical. But before I do that, I want to just brief touch of last night's cover, which we discussed, taqwa as the final category listed in 183 Surah Al-Baqarah. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu kutiba alaykum as-siyam kama kutiba ala alladhina min qablikum la'allakum tattaqun. We talked about briefly the framework by which Quran or Islam uses to identify who were the believers. We also, in the light of assessment of the Sermon of Sha'baniyah, we talked about, again briefly, we did not have time to spend on addressing these issues, but at least briefly we discussed what kind of restraint or at least fast was intended to be. It wasn't just pure abstention from water and food. It was much more complicated and much more in-depth. And then we moved into taqwa. The third category in the verse was an historical claim, that the verse says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu kutiba alaykum as-siyam kama kutiba ala alladhina min qablikum. There is a claim, an historical claim, that people who lived before you, the other nations, have gone through something similar to it. And under some other time we may be able to spend a few lectures to assess whether this kind of claim is correct, and if there has been fasts in other people or other nations, what kind of a fast they had. Did it come anywhere close to the fast that we have for the month of Ramadan? But the final point was taqwa, and this notion of God's sentence, where God becomes an essential part of our life that literally holds everything together. And ultimately, I tried to explain that taqwa was hypervigilance that we gain through the exercise of going through a number of exercises in our lives, that we get to the stage in which somehow we are able to control ourselves whenever we fall into a situation that we may commit sin and shortcoming. We just hold ourselves back. So taqwa, I recited a few verses that clearly indicated it was a protection, meaning from in Arabic language. It's a kind of protection that is gained through exercise. And nothing would help us better gain that stage than fasting, particularly if we try to comply within the command and follow the instruction, not just food and drink. No, we really try to attempt to control our eyes, ears, tongues, etc., etc. So if we are able to refrain from shortcomings, this 30 days process really would help in gaining that kind of protection, or at least gaining a step forward towards that concept which is put down. And for the younger generation that were here last night, there were more numbers last night than tonight, I tried to give a couple of what we call literal examples in various mythology, whether it was British or American or something, and to remind them what do we mean by the concept of taqwa in its more academic or much more religiously, an interpretation or understanding might be difficult for them. So I tried to bring that concept in as a shield that in these mythical figures that they use to protect themselves against harm by their enemy. And in our struggle, there is nothing stronger enemy than shaitan. Quran repeatedly has stated it. فَاتَّخِذُوهُ إِنَّهُ عَدُوٌ لَكُمْ فَاتَّخِذُوهُ عَدُوٌ. He is indeed your enemy number one. Treat shaitan as enemy number one, which means take all the precaution not to fall into the traps of waswasa and etc. Tonight, I want to focus on two associative kind of psychological issue that relates to the point that I stated, and that is ya's and qunut. قل يا عبادي الذين أسرفوا على أنفسهم لا تقنطوا من رحمة. Don't be despondent. إن الله يغفر الذنوب جميعا. There is ya's, which means it's a kind of the lower level of despondency, which literally we call it despair. Despair and despondency, these are two concepts that interact, but there are minor differences. Despair normally starts from within. When you see all the doors are closed, or you perceive it to be, may not have been. Your understanding or our understanding that there is no way, no opportunity, no way out, all the doors are shut, there is nothing I can do. That inherent feeling of everything is closed creates ya's in Arabic language, or despair in English. So long as it's not affecting the outside world on behavior, and does not create what we call paralysis of taking the step, then the step still remains as ya's. But if it is translated into outside, well, I have so many sins, why should I bother now anymore to do anything to correct myself? This is despondency, or qunut, that now we are not even, it doesn't remain inside, it comes outside. These are issues that I'm going to focus upon. Western or contemporary psychology treats this as a mental issue. It's something to do with mind or mental composition, and this is why if you go to any advisor, counselor or doctor, immediately they prescribe pills. Then because unfortunately the West or Western psychology, or more materialistic psychology, does not see a role for spirituality in one's development. And you may not have any psychological, physical crisis. Your problem might be spiritual that reflects into it. That's out. What we have today as psychology is Freudian psychology, and Freudian psychology clearly, right from the beginning, makes it clear that spirituality and these kind of things are fiction of the old type of humanity that they really could not conceive or understand the crisis of the world. From an Islamic point of view, Islam asserts that believers in Allah's universal mercy and universal kindness should never lose hope, no matter what crisis they are in and how deep they are in crisis, one way or the other. And whatever the circumstance, and should never submit to despair and despondence. Ya's and qunut, which we see a number of ahadith and riwayat, as well as a number of verses, clearly address this hopelessness, despair, particularly because it stops people from beginning to take corrective action or corrective step in their life, is rejected. From an Islamic point of view, a sound individual is an individual that takes corrective step whenever they see that there is a problem, be it economic, be it psychological, be it spiritual, be it physical, whatever it is. The notion that we throw in the towel and we are not going to do anything is rejected. You see a problem, then attempt to resolve it. وَالَّذِينَ إِذَا فَعَلُوا فَاحِشَةً أَوْ ظَلَمُوا أَنفُسَهُمْ ذَكَرُوا اللَّهَ فَاسْتَغْفَرُوا لِذُنُوبِهِمْ. No matter even the people that they have a number of shortcomings. Once they realize that they have sinned, that there are shortcomings, they don't throw in the towel and say, that's it, we are not going to do anything. Take corrective action because the opportunity is there. فَاسْتَغْفَرُوا لِذُنُوبِهِمْ وَمَنْ يَغْفِرُ الذُّنُوبَ إِلَّا اللَّهُ. There is that avenue, that door, that window is always open. But we need to take the corrective step. Unfortunately, Ya's and Qunut, once they set in, it becomes, they become paralyzing. That I have heard that even some of the questions that were posed last night clearly indicate that there are individuals, because of the degree of the crisis that they see themselves in, they think by not doing anything or brushing the crisis under the carpet, it's going to disappear. Most of the youth that we talk to these days that have some kind of, call it psychological issue, or what these Western psychology calls it, mental problem. It's not mental. There's nothing wrong mentally with them. It's the crisis of spirituality that modern man is suffering from it everywhere. The moment your link with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is severed, that part of human composition that had to be satisfied is no longer there. And there is a vacuum and a void. For a short period of time you may not be able to notice it, but once it's prolonged, it's going to show itself out, one way or the other. Some people go suddenly, because they cannot see a way out, they cannot fathom their own crisis, they see it as well, might as well go 180 degrees, let's enjoy our life. But then what? The moment you go to sleep, the mind comes back, nafs al-lawwama comes back and says, what are you doing here? Is this what you have been created for? So, وَالَّذِينَ إِذَا فَعَلُوا فَاحِشَةً أَوْ ظَلَمُوا أَنفُسَهُمْ ذَكَرُوا اللَّهَ. They immediately remember and start asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for forgiveness. None of us are infallible. We are all fallible. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows that. But there is a difference between somebody who says, I am fallible and I make mistake, and immediately, oh Lord, forgive. Amir al-Mu'mineen Najib Balagha, around the end of Najib Balagha, the short saying, he says, I am not afraid of a sin that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives me few hours to repent. What I am afraid of is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes my life the moment that I am sinning. Then there is no reprieve. The door has been left open for us to come back. There is a hadith from the 8th Imam, in the tradition from Imam Rida والسلام, where he was listed, he lists Yas and Qunut as the second and the third great sins. Qunut, despondence, is described as the condition where one's heart loses hope of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah's mercy, and that the person does not even dislike hopelessness. It becomes part of natural life. Yas and Qunut, according to the religious scholars, the differences between Yas and Qunut is the term Yas is used normally in the general cases, while the Qunut is a special case. The general case is when it's a negative feeling that you have inside. Qunut is a step that you come outside and you literally give up hope and no action to be taken. And this is counted repeatedly in the verses in the Holy Quran. This is not the one that I just mentioned. There are other ones as well. وَالَّذِينَ إِذَا فَعَلُوا فَاحِشَةً, a few verses similar to this. Quran, to challenge and counter this kind of behavior, gives examples. These examples, if we pay attention to them in Quran, we see that these examples clearly indicate, telling those readers that in this life material cause is not the only cause. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is working with you as well. And if you submit, strong petition, constantly ask, Allah will turn the table around through other causes that Allah brings into the whole picture. Go back to the story of Ibrahim. They come to him and they say, well, historians claim that he was around 120, and Sarah, his wife, was around, say, Sarah, his wife, was around 98, 95 or something. The angels come and they say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has decided to give you a son. He begins to ask questions. He literally interrogates the angels. Look, hang on a minute, I'm 120 years old. My wife is 95 years old. How on earth this is going to happen? What the response comes that you shouldn't be despondent. The verse is, قالوا بشرناك بالحق فلا تكن من القانطين. Don't be despondent. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has decided to give you this. So why are you arguing? Why the argument? This story, as well as the story of Prophet Ismail, when he is born, after 10 years he is commanded, the moment that he is born, he is commanded to take his wife Hajar and Ismail to a desert. Leave them over there and come back. Now here, mystical scholars or scholars of mysticism has gone really wild in trying to explain exactly why this happened. One response is that Ibrahim, despite his greatness, he did not wait for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give him the son. He asked for it. Allah responded, but then gave him 10 years or 11 years of separation. And tested him after 10 or 11 years. The child is born with the mother. You take the mother and the child into a desert. Leave them over there and come back. 10 or 12 years later, he is asked to go back now and see the son that he has not seen for 12 years. The moment he gets there, this young boy in front of him says the command is to sacrifice, to see whether he submits. After his old test, we're talking about trial and testing. These are tests and trials for even our Anbiya. He tries to sacrifice. The sharp knife doesn't cut. And then the response came, فَفَدَيْنَاهُ وَذَبْحْنَاهُ, that it was, we were trying to test your submission to the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. These are signs that, look, yes, we, on the face of what we call the crisis that we are dealing with, the material or physical life, we may see no option, no doors open. But وَمَنْ يَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ فَهُوَ حَسْبُهُ. There are ways. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this life walks with us. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not going to abandon us. We may be tested or tried with one difficulty or one trial or tribulation. عَسَىٰ أَن تَكْرَهُ شَيْئًا وَهُوَ خَيْرٌ. In this great schema of things, we see only around this small space around us. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala looks at it in a much more detail and macro level. And there are certain times that some things I wanted now, but in the greater scheme of things, it's not going to be beneficial to me. So the will of Allah prevails. The greatest story that this comes to tell us as a reminder with regard to Ya's and Qunut is the story of Yaqub and Yusuf. Particularly the last trip. Let's look at the story. The children have gone to Egypt a few times without knowing. They have seen Yusuf. The second brother, Benjamin, has been taken away from them under the pretext that he may have stolen something. Now they have come back to the father and asking him to deal with the crisis that they are in. On the one hand, their reputation and dignity in Egypt in ruin. Why? Because now these people that have come from Canaan, from Palestine, clearly have been labeled as thieves, particularly the sons of Yaqub. Their reputation is in ruin. Drought is severe and unrelenting. They live in a part of the world that there is nothing but sand. And they have nothing, no mean to go back to Egypt and exchange it for a little bit of food. Another brother is lost, which was what? Refreshing the memory of Yusuf and bringing it back after many years that the brothers thought everything is finished. Or the father has accepted the reality and opened up old wounds. Because of the loss of now 2 of beloved children, Yaqub has gone blind. The father has gone blind. Children who, or the child or the son that perpetrated that crime now feels the tension. Because now everybody points the finger to him. You were the one who instigated the whole mess. What does the father come in response? لا تعيسوا من روح الله. Under such difficult circumstance, don't be despondent of Allah's mercy. In this critical, that literally, if you read the verse, they began to wonder whether he's sane. But you are still wandering in a cuckoo's land. Look, wake up, face the music. We have nothing. The 2 boys are already gone, and you're still talking about go and search for Yusuf. لا تعيسوا من روح الله. Don't be despondent. Don't give up. هو الذي يقبل التوبة عن عباده ويعفو عن السيئات. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the only source that you have. That if you want your sins to be forgiven, by despair and despondency is not going to get you anywhere. When the doors are shut, turn your face upward. And you see the miracle. The month of Ramadan, as I tried to explain the concept of Tawbah, the issue of negative characteristics that we have to remove from ourselves, the challenges that we are facing, the bad habits that we have acquired over many days and many months and could be many years, they have to be dealt with and confronted slowly. I wasn't trying to scare anyone. I was trying to lay the fact in front of you. This is what we have to deal with. But at the same time, we must be reminded that we should always rely on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That the door over there is not shut. وَإِذَا سَأَلَكَ عِبَادِي عَنِّي, the same verses of Psalm, فَإِنِّي قَرِيبٌ أُجِيبُ دَعْوَةَ الدَّاعِي إِذَا دَعَانِ. What do we mean? I'm close. But you take the first step. I have already shown you my Rahman part, the general part of the mercy. You want the specific mercy, the conditional mercy? Take the step for it. And you don't need, we talked about repentance, we talked about, look, it's for our benefit, nobody else's benefit. Because this life is a transient life. And ultimately we have, what we have to be fair. I mean, those of you who have recited Dua Abu Hamza al-Thamani in Sahih al-Sab'in Mafatih, you have come across it. يا مولاي إذا رأيت ذنوبي فزعت وإذا رأيت كرمك طمعت. This literally, we have Imam Sajjad, Imam Muhammad al-Baqir and others, they create a continuum that we should literally move between this continuum of khawf and raja. Khawf is the fear when we look at our own sins, and raja and hope when we look at Allah's mercy. We should gravitate between these 2 poles. Imam Muhammad al-Baqir with regard to Khawf al-Raja says, لَيْسَ مِنْ عَبْدٍ مُؤْمِنٍ إِلَّا وَفِي قَلْبِهِ نُورَانٍ. Every believer, there are two different types of light in his heart. خِيفَةٌ وَنُورُ خِيفَةٍ وَنُورُ رَجَاءٍ. On the one hand, when we become, we look at our own deeds and become realistic, say, okay, what have we got to offer? Let's, for the sake of argument, tomorrow or a few minutes from now, Angel Jibreel comes down and says, come on, let's pack it up and go. It's a fact of life. We talked about this. Amir al-Mu'mineen sallallahu alayhi says, I have never seen anything as strong, as concrete in human life as death, but yet is forgotten and forgiven and ignored. If we are going to be asked, what have we got to offer? This is a realistic approach. It's, as a matter of fact, if we take the necessary step, we are pragmatic individuals, we are the true believers. If we allow ourselves to become despondent and say, no, Allah subhanahu, I have sinned too much, there is no hope. No, there is plenty of hope. The only thing is you need to take one step and say, oh Lord, forgive. But it has to be coming out from the heart. Imam Sajjad, the Sahih Sajjadiyya says, oh Lord, I neither despair of your mercy, nor am I despondent regarding you. You, the most perfect individual, the most merciful, the most compassionate. But I am aggrieved because of my good deeds. They are only few. And then my bad deeds are numerous. Otherwise, your position is so high that not a single creature turned away and dejected by you in their life. The door has been left open. Month of Ramadan was a special blessing for all of us. Fortunately or unfortunately, whether we succeeded during this month in doing what we were supposed to do, but let's pat ourselves on the back and say, okay, if we succeeded to do little bit, it was better than nothing. So what went into the month was different from the one that came out, even slightly. The responsibility, the jihad, the struggle is now, how do we keep up this moment after the month? Because Eid, as I indicated last night, from an Islamic point of view, Amir al-Mu'mineen sallallahu alayhi says, فَكُلُّ يَوْمٍ لَا يُعْصَى اللَّهُ فِيهِ فَهُوَ يَوْمُ عِيدٍ. Any day that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not disobeyed in it, it's a day of Eid. Let's struggle that make every day a day of Eid for us, rather than becoming one day or 2 days. By obeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, controlling ourselves, structuring our life, giving direction to our life, becoming aware that, look, no matter who you are, what kind of position you have, what kind of wealth you have, at the end of the day, if we are lucky, 3 pieces of cloth. That's it. Is it worth it? Well, the abode out over there that's expecting us for eternity, we don't pay attention to. So let's focus. The jihad should continue. The struggle should continue. Inshallah, whatever we have started, no matter how small it is, remember that Allah will forgive sins no matter how great they are. As long as we take the necessary step. We move, give direction to our life, and we move into that direction. It wasn't intended to be scary lectures, but I apologize if it turned out to be that way, because I thought I needed to remind everyone that these issues are really critical. So let's end by reciting Surah Al-Fatiha for everyone who has passed away, and particularly Marhum Allama Shaykh Muhammad Jawad Sharri, and ask everyone ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant those who are working within this Islamic center, outside, inside, to grant them peace, tranquility, and enthusiasm to continue. chairman is here. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for his long and healthy life, that may he continue to do the good deed that he has already started. So, inshallah, I'll hasten the return of our living Imam. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin. Strange, the brother has gone right to the door. What have you done to him, sisters? He doesn't want to be close anymore. He used to sit in this corner. I think they put the fear of death into him. He's not coming close. Let's start with questions, please. Brother Muhammad.
Okay, how did the end of that, at the end of that, God call of a person, who makes you believe?
Well, it's when the life comes to an end. We have in our literature, in our books, or in Islam, a concept in which the angel of death takes the life, the spirit, the soul of an individual away. So I was trying to explain that if we were to face that, and if it happened to us, how are we going to respond? Okay. Thank you. Go ahead. Well, we have a number of verses in the Holy Quran as well as Hadith. If a person, remember a few nights ago we were debating this issue, salvation is conditional to what? Is it conditional that every time a new revelation comes, then people have to accept the new revelation, and if you were to follow the old revelation, it becomes null and void? Or salvation is more, the idea of salvation is more what we call praxis-orientated, more action-orientated, rather than purely a faith. I cannot claim, I refuse to accept somebody like Daesh or these terrorist organizations that at least swear allegiance to some kind of a faith called Islam should be equal to somebody who has no faith whatsoever, doesn't believe in anything, but has been working for the benefit of humanity or his or her life. There are those, and by the way, this exists in Christianity as well, particularly the early Protestant movement, Luther and Calvinist and others, that they emphasize salvation purely by faith. No matter what deeds you present is not going to be acceptable if you do not have faith in this unique mythical individual that they call Christ. Islam rejects that. Within Islam, there are those who say the same thing, that you have to say Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah for your action to be accepted. The more scholarly approach is that no, it's not. Each one is independent of the other. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, man ja'a bil hasanati falahu ashra amthaliha. It doesn't say that it has to be from a faithful or not faithful. Those who commit or act in good deed for the benefit of others, Allah rewards them 10 times. وَمَنْ جَعَلَ السَّيِّئَةَ فَلَا يُجْزَى إِلَّا مِثْلُهَا. You commit sin, you will be punished accordingly.
So what happens on the day of judgment? The good deeds and the bad deeds, including the faith issue, is brought together. And then the verses that talk about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will deal with those Christian, Jews, Sabi'is and others, and they all, so long as they remain faithful to the faith and act according to their faith, on the day of judgment Allah would reward them or deal with them. This is it. That an atheist, if he or she works for the benefit of humanity, the doctor, let me just give you an example, that doesn't believe in any faith, but is prepared to spend 3 months or 4 months free of charge to go to the middle of Africa to deal with those who have cataract eyes and they cannot see, and treat them for free. Are you telling me this person, it will be totally against Allah's justice to say that this person will not be rewarded because he has no faith, and these creepy crawlies that claim to be Muslims are being rewarded despite everything that they do? It's just irrational. So what we have to accept, that on the day of judgment, Allah is the one who makes judgment. And the criteria is that clearly defined. Every deed, every action has a reaction, positive or negative. And then collectively the book is presented. Does that mean that these people who have no faith, there is no book for them, washed, hopeless, they're going straight to wherever that we want to define that place for them? No. Everyone will be accountable for what they have done. And the account is a collection of good deeds and bad deeds. They will be asked, why didn't you use your mind and your intellect to choose the path that would have guided you to, at least as far as faith? But certainly you did good deeds, and I will reward you for it. There is a story about Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq, I think I said it once. Said it became well known, suddenly somebody in Medina became famous as very philanthropic and very caring about the poor and the needy. So Imam wanted to find out what kind of a character this guy was. So he comes out incognito and follows him around. So that he came out of his house with a large empty sack. He went to the nearest bakery and waited for the baker to turn his face away, stole a few breads and dropped it into the sack. Moved away. Moved to a butcher. Again, stole a few pieces of meat, goes into that. Vegetable shop, the same thing, and so on, and filled the sack up and went outside Medina, where what in contemporary parlance we call the slum city. The fuqara, where the poor and the needy were still living, went over there and began to distribute it between the poor and the needy. Imam was perplexed. What kind of action is this? So he said, my brother, forgive me for asking this question. I was following you this morning and I saw X, Y, and Z. Could you explain to me the rationale of the logic? He said, yes, it's very simple. Do you read Quran? I said, yes, to a degree. He said, okay, have you read this surah, Man ja'a bil hasanati falahu ashru amthaliha? I said, yes. Have you read that Man ja'a bil sayyati fala yujza illa mithlaha? Yes. What's that got to do with it? He said, well, it's a simple mathematics. I have stolen 10 things from 10 people, so minus 10. But I've given them to fuqara for each action. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala multiply it by 10. So I have 100 hasana, take away 10 negative, I have 90 hasana in my favor. This kind of a mindset doesn't work. What we need to do is to focus on these actions, no matter who's going. And this is, by the way, not a new question. I remember in the 1960s and 70s, these kind of questions used to come to the scholars in Najaf and asking them. Those who said, no, it has to be faith-orientated, action will only have a meaning if it centers on faith, they would say, no. Others, they say, no, these actions are independent. I will be questioned for the faith, and I will be rewarded for the action at the same time. I will leave it in the hand, ultimately it's in the hand of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make a judgment, one way or the other. We have two questions from the sister. This is the third one. I have to put them all together and keep them for next year, inshallah. Why is the Quran compiled in a different order than how it was revealed? And who decided that the order of the surah? Well, as you are aware, the verses, the 114 chapters of the Holy Quran are divided into Makkis and Madinis. Some of them they were revealed in Mecca, and some were revealed in Medina. But not all of the chapters that were revealed in Medina, they are Madanis, and not all the chapters that are revealed in Mecca are Makkis, because as the revelation came, the person that decided was the Holy Prophet. The story of what we call the scribes, the way Quran was collected, we have debate as whether there were 8 of them or 12 of them, but certainly there were a number of individuals that could write. And the Holy Prophet brought these numbers in, including Ali ibn Abi Talib was one of them, and asked them every time there is a revelation that comes, he would call them in and would recite it to them for them to write it down. And to make sure that there is no mistake, he would ask them to recite back to him and would correct them. He would tell them where to put this new verse. So this is the decision that as far as who decided, it was the Holy Prophet himself. Why it is, again, the debate. We believe that as far as revelation of the Holy Quran has 2 revelations. One in revelation complete on the night of Qadr, which is the 23rd most probably, and then a second revelation gradual over 23 years. The first revelation that came gave the full picture of how Quran to be organized. So when the Holy Prophet commanded, for example, the scribes to put this verse in such a particular place, because the blueprint existed in his mind. So he followed that. This is Shia understanding. But Ahl Sunnah, no, they differ regarding this issue, because there is a huge debate as to whether, if you go to the best book that you can read is Al-Bayan fi Tafsir al-Quran, which Sayyid Khoy, Sayyid Abu Qasim Khoy wrote it, Marhum Sayyid Khoy, and it's been translated into English. I have a copy of it, and there is a chapter regarding whether Quran was what we have today is full, complete of the Quran that was revealed. The debate between Shias and Sunnis regarding this issue. There are at least 13 or 14 hadith in Muslim and Bukhari that clearly states, narrating from Umar, Abu Bakr, and Aisha, and a few others, that there were other chapters in the book that no longer are there. This is rejected by Islam, by Shias. See, the notion that somehow the book that we have is not the complete book that was revealed from Quran is fanciful, because if you open that door, it literally undermines Islam completely. But it is, as far as those who claim that this was all spread all over, in papyrus, papers, leathers, etc., even bones, shoulder bones, etc., there is a debate as who to put them together. There is a claim that it was the first Khalif Abu Bakr. There is a claim that they say it's second Khalif Umar. But main school of thought within the Sunnis that Uthman put them together, because of the fact that the scribes, as the expansion took place, they traveled around, and there was a fear that one scribe goes to North Africa, and then suddenly you have people saying, we follow Abdullah ibn Mas'ud's version of Quran. And then another scribe goes to Kufa, we follow X's Quran. He decided to collect all these Qurans that existed, burned them, and picked one copy. And that remained the one that we have today. So this debate exists, but as far as putting them together and everything else is the Holy Prophet from our point of view. Why is Surah Yasin known as the heart of the Quran? Because of the great emphasis that we are given about Surah Yasin. If you spend time in assessing it, it takes Surah Yasin addresses a number of critical issues that literally become, if you look at it, we talk about Surah Al-Fatiha being the same thing, Surah Yasin and a few others that condenses, brings together all major issues that Quran addresses, from spirituality to physical well-being notion of guidance, etc. So this is why it's a metaphorical use of language to indicate that this surah is extremely critical and a very important surah to read. But I will keep these questions just in case. Oh, he's coming over here. See, we've got a few. Thanks to your work, I think, at home. Well, we've come to an end tonight, and as you decided, I stayed out of it. So tomorrow night we're going to, sorry, I won't say it now. Tomorrow night we're going to have one last attempt at it, and hopefully we prepare ourselves for Tuesday and Wednesday, the 2 Friday, 8 prayers. As far as we have decided, 3 prayers are 3 sessions. We have 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, and 10 o'clock, both days. So those of you who cannot make it 8 o'clock, on Tuesday, and they are off the group, they follow Wednesday, we have these 3 sessions. Please remind everyone, next Sunday, Sunday the 10th, we are starting our Sunday program, but no food this time, this Sunday, because of the Arba'in for the son of Marhum Sheikh Sharri. But from Sunday after, the sisters and others we will organize it together. Next week, I will contact the youth and the students that we have to see whether we can resurrect back again the Nahjul Balagha program on Saturday night and the Sunday afternoon for the university student program. As Brother Ahmad said, there is work and conversation that we may be able to organize Friday night English program for the entire family rather than just the youth or one particular group. Once it's organized, I'm sure he and other brothers and sisters that work with him will inform everyone. Thank you very much. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you everyone for joining us tonight. Inshallah, we're going to see everybody tomorrow as we voted. And thank you, Malana, for the great lecture. Assalam.
Mm-hmm.